Good Monday, everyone. Dr. Eve in the house. I hope you all are doing well. Welcome. Excited to be back in the live space with you all today. I coming in to chat just a little bit before I delve into some of these books that I got going on. You know, you got to manage God's resources well before He will give you more. So I'm excited. Again, I am Dr. Eve. I am a daughter of the highest majesty, and I am excited to be alive and in the kingdom of heaven, or working for the kingdom of heaven. I wanted to come in. I was looking at one of a post over in LinkedIn, and one of my amazing friends from many years. I watched people grow, and you can never ever discount the contributions that you make into the life of another human. That is a part of the work that we're called to do. And so as I share more on these channels about living beyond, getting beyond, because life goes on. You grow, you master things, you move on at different phases in your life. God will move you to the next level. That's what it's all about, guys. It's all about levels. It's all about levels. Where are you in your life? So for those of you who don't know me, again, I'm Dr. Eve, and I'm on the journey beyond. And that journey beyond has been since my existence. I started that lead phrase because I want us to always be thinking about where God has brought us from and where He's taking us to, because we've always been on a journey. The journey has had its ebbs and its flows. It had some good, some bad, some not so good, some great. I hope you're in a better position today. I think when I think what helps me to realize and be in full gratitude for where I am today is thinking about life and where I've come from, and how my God has helped me to persevere through all the things. And there were levels. So I'm going to share with you today. I was looking at the post on LinkedIn. One of my good friends is now the dean of Elizabeth City State University, Department of Humanities and English. And y'all, I remember when I was working at the English department here at East Carolina University here in North Carolina, and I was administrative manager for the English department chair. So my responsibility in that role was primarily HR for faculty, tenure track, making sure that they had what they needed as they transitioned through the process of tenure track. And of course, I was a staff supervisor. So I wore a lot of hats, but more specifically, one of the things that I absolutely loved about that role was working with graduate students. And so I had some really neat friends who were graduate students. And again, I was, they were not only graduate students, but they were lecturers. So here's how that works. When you come in as a graduate student at the university, you have the opportunity to become a graduate assistant. And in your graduate assistant role, you have the opportunity to teach, right? To teach alongside or get graduate assistantships with faculty members, working on publications or working alongside them in a classroom, and yada, yada, yada. And many of them, as they moved through their processes, were able to teach freshman composition classes. And so I had a lot of encounters with the graduate students as they transition through their graduate assistantships to lecturer positions. And many of them I had very, very close relations with, because they were walking out processes that were not familiar to them, right? And so you often hear me say, how are you managing the resources that God has put you here to do? Now, remember, I'm always sharing about there are levels to our growth and development in society, right? And so at that point, again, I was an assistant administrative manager for the chair of the department. And I primarily, again, was, dealing with the faculty and graduate students who were transitioning into their leadership roles as instructors. And so they weren't always comfortable with those roles, right? And many of them were preparing to go off to PhD programs and things like that. And so I remember this this particular, who was a really good friend of mine. And she was preparing to go off to a PhD studies in Indiana State University, and trying to decide, what would her already beginning, even with that, she would come back during the summers and maybe do some summer classes, because she lived here, but she was doing her PhD studies in Indiana. So she had gotten to a point in her studies where you have to choose what you're going to write your dissertation about, right? Very familiar. Now, I was not a PhD at the time. Again, I didn't even have a graduate degree. But how God will still use you to help prepare other people. And I was not only inspiring them, but they were also inspiring me. And so she was very, her concentration, even at the master's level, she focused a lot on veterans because of her personal experience, because her father was a veteran, and she did a lot of amazing things with the North Carolina Humanities Council, going around the state and really bringing visibility to the lives of veterans in this state, across the state. And so I remember her saying, when she was thinking of, and I was also in that space with her, because I was like, hey, let's do it. Everywhere she went, I wanted to be a part, because of what the work that she was doing was so important. And so as she was moving through her PhD studies, again, she was time to decide what we're going to write about. So she would confide in me, and I was like, well, why would you choose anything other than the great work that you're already doing? Now, mind you, I had no idea about PhD studies at that time, but it seems like a great thing to continue because it's needed, right? And you are already so impactful in the work that you're doing. She did. She went ahead and she conquered, and she really honed in on, veteran studies across the country. She had already done amazing work. This is what I'm talking about. When I share with you all, I share often about how you are already serving, and how you don't have to deviate away from your service. It's really going to propel you into the things that God has truly called you to do. So not only did she continue her work as in veteran studies or African American studies, and with the concentration on these veterans and their stories, what we call oral history, but she is now, again, the dean. She is the dean at the Elizabeth City State University, and she's still traveling and working very heavily in the work of the Army. And I just saw her where she was jumping out of a plane with the Army, ROTC, connected with the Army military here in North Carolina, where she was chosen to take flight. To be in space with them. So you see, to not be in space, but to parachute out of this plane And it was a challenge for her, but it was an amazing, it seemed like adventure. She was the perfect person for the job. So, and Dr. Rayner, I am so incredibly proud of the work that you are doing. And again, like I said, we inspire each other. Do not discount the many ways that you can inspire another human being. At that time, I wasn't a PhD. I was working with tenure track and faculty positions, and she happened to be transitioning. I was a support system to those young students who were coming through our programs to begin their careers as faculty members. And so again, you see, so I was fitting in, I was doing, and I was managing the resources the way that God would have me to manage them. But we oftentimes, you have to go back and reflect on hindsight. In hindsight, how God used you in that moment, even to continue the work that you are doing today. So today, I am a PhD in health and human service education, which is a perfect fit for me. And I mentor other students, and I mentor others who are transitioning out of school and maybe doing non-traditional work in the field as an entrepreneur. And so it just all comes together, you guys. And I want you all to never ever discount where you are in your life, and thinking about why what you're doing in the moment is so very, very important. To look back on that LinkedIn post, watching her jump out of parachute out of that plane with Army ROTC, with her state, with her university, and of course in collective with the military here in North Carolina and their role in the university settings. She has literally all her life, she has literally everything at every single layer of her life. She is the perfect example of why we are always saying, how are you managing the resources that God has already given you? There are always layers to the work that we do, but how are you stewarding what you're doing now? So oftentimes you don't have to look outside of the service that you are doing, because literally God is connecting the dots to your next level. Now, Dr. Rayner was a really good steward over the history of the veterans. Her dad was a veteran. She had a real lot lived experience, and it was amazing watching her grow as a student, from a student to a faculty member, graduate assistant to a faculty member, and now watching her travel all over the world, and now the dean at East Elizabeth City State University, parachuting out of planes with the military. See it all work together. So I want you to not discount the work that you're doing. Just find the pathway towards extending your service opportunity as you grow. That is the work that we do here at in our program with Innovative Approaches to Manifesting Wealth and Excellence, is helping you to extend your services to the community, helping you to continue managing the thing that God put you charge over, and extending that in a way that it yields for you. It yields the work that you do for God, but He wants in everything to prosper you in all the work that you do for Him, for the kingdom of heaven. I am Dr. Eve on the journey beyond. I hope that this was an encouragement to you this morning, this Monday morning, and that you too will begin to not steer away from the thing that God has really called you to service, right? He's called us all to service of some kind. Again, her service was to share the lived experience of veterans. My work is to share the lived experience of Black women, right? And so God is doing something amazing. Pay attention to what he is calling you to do. There's truly amazing work being done. Do not look to the right or to the left at what others are doing. You must commit to the thing that God has called you to do and watch him give you layer after layer after layer on your journey beyond. This is Dr. Eve, and I hope you have the most amazing day, and do not let anyone get in the way on your journey beyond.